before we dive into the presentations, I'd like to hand over to Kitty Healey from the VMD, who's head of the surveillance division and also heads up the antimicrobial resistance team at the Veterinary Medicines Directorate, and she'll provide some opening remarks. So if I could hand over to Kitty.
Thanks very much, Katrina. Thank you for opening, and welcome to everybody. Really delighted to welcome you to this research symposium in our role of lead and coordinator for government AMR policy at the VMD here for issues related to animals. And you're here, so I'm guessing you already know that AMR is a complex and multifaceted problem, and confronting it really does require a join-up approach across all of the sectors involved, which are industry, government, and of course academia. We've seen the power of working together. We know that the UK has seen a 59% reduction in antibiotic use in food-producing animals over the last 10 years. And we've seen also that this has been coupled with trends of decreasing levels of resistance in animals in some of our key indicators. So we can see that what we're doing does make a difference. And it's really impressive that to date this has been achieved by voluntary and collaborative approaches, and really shows the importance of collecting and sharing data and using evidence to drive these results. A One Health approach is, of course, integral to the UK's ambitious national action plan, and this is where we build on the successes that we've already achieved. And talking of successes, to succeed in this next phase, it's really important that we continue to understand what's happening and what's working. And the more the pieces of the puzzle come together, the better we can make decisions to continue to tackle AMR, ensure appropriate use of antibiotics, and prevent disease. So commissioning research to inform our surveillance and stewardship efforts is a really important tool to help us do this effectively. And this is because research outputs fill evidence gaps, especially in surveillance, and this helps us to better understand the spread and development of AMR, and in turn inform policy dialogues and interventions. Investing in targeted and high quality research is really vital to ensure we're targeting cost-effective and context-specific solutions. And this is also a key part of our NAP, our National Action Plan. And Niloy is going to talk a little bit more about this. So it's therefore our really great pleasure to showcase today a selection of VMD commissioned research across companion and food-producing animal sectors, antimicrobial resistance and antimicrobial stewardship. Thank you very much. And back to you, Katrina.
Thanks very much. Thanks, Kitty. Without too much of a break, I'll actually hand straight over. Kitty mentioned Niloy Acharyya, who is the VMD's R&D program manager, so oversees all of our research and development work, not just on AMR. But he will outline for us some of what the program does and how it contributes both to the VMD's objective and also the UK's commitments under the latest AMR National Action Plan. Niloy.
Great. Thank you very much, Katrina and Kitty. And as has already been mentioned, a very warm welcome to all of you who have taken time out of your day to join us on this exciting event showcasing some of the amazing antimicrobial resistance research that we've undertaken in recent years. As a brief introduction, I'm Niloy Acharyya and I lead the Research and Development Programme at the Veterinary Medicines Directorate, and I'd like to give you a brief overview of our R&D programme, to what are our aims, what do we cover, and how do we go about making it happen. So, who are we? Well, as many of you on the call will be aware, we are the UK's regulatory agency for veterinary medicines, but in this context we recognise that once medicines have been proven to be safe and effective and are in use, there will always be the opportunity to identify and fill evidence gaps that focus on the longer term use of the medicine once it's out there, and it's I guess the long-term ambition to protect animal as well as human health and indeed the environment we all live in. Additionally, there are some areas at the start of the medicine delivery pipeline that don't attract industry support if they're not commercially viable, for instance. We do have to exercise a bit of caution here to ensure that any research we do support doesn't conflict with our role as a regulator. So to be clear, as an organisation, the VMD is an evidence-driven organisation, and the research we seek to commission is to ensure that our policy areas, such as antimicrobial resistance and veterinary medicines, are informed by the latest knowledge, the most current technology, and the skills and expertise that are out there, and of which many people involved in that are on the call now. The types of things that we work on, so the size and scope of our research can vary. So we do have some very small scale, short-term pieces of research that could fulfill an immediate need, to much larger areas that we commission that that could range to for instance a fully fledged PhD project. And the upcoming presentations that you will see will demonstrate a range of different research approaches that we've used here. So on to what we as an R&D program do at the VMD. So fundamentally, there are four main research themes. So first, of course, and it comes as no surprise to everybody on the call, is antimicrobial resistance. There are two main strands here that we look at. So through this program, we commission the research that underpins the surveillance of AMR, so that we explore the most up-to-date monitoring tools using technologies such as whole genome sequencing and other areas that add value to the existing surveillance knowledge and prepare us for whatever the future throws at us, and whatever threats are out there in the animal world. The second strand is looking at the sort of broader range of AMR research around animal health that align with the UK's National Action Plan commitments and focus, which I'll say a few more words on that in a minute or two. And anyway, you'll be hearing a lot of this work very soon. Another key theme is focusing on anthelmintic resistance. I'm sure many of you on the call are aware parasitic helminths or worms can pose a substantial health and economic threat to the livestock of horses worldwide. In the same way there's evidence that antibiotics become resistant to bacterial infections, there's a growing body of evidence that the medicines used to treat these parasites are starting to demonstrate a lack of efficacy, or in other words, starting to show a resistance to them. So our program here is supporting research into this area with ongoing work looking at how these are used in the equine. Ongoing work is looking at the equine community, but not solely the equine community, and also ascarid infections, which can have a debilitating effect on horses. Again, we work closely with stakeholders with an interest in mitigating the threat of anthelmintic resistance. Next, clearly the correct use of medicines is an important approach to keeping animals well. I don't think we'll disagree with that. As antibiotic use demonstrates, there's a big concern on the impact on the environment for the actives and byproducts, etc., that make it into the environment, into the waterways, into the fields, etc. So we have a program that supports VMD's bigger aims at looking at the impact of pharmaceuticals in the environment. And our main focus at the moment is looking specifically at spot-on flea treatments with some very specific actives in for cats and dogs, and the potential for them to impact on the waterways and the aquatic life therein. So that's something that gets a bit of media attention, that to make you aware that it's something that's at the heart of what we do, and it is important. Finally, as popped up before I pressed it, is novel therapies. So this is bubbling under, and it's a future aspiration to identify research into new and evolving areas that, again, many of you on the call, I'm sure, are familiar with bacteriophage, but also areas of artificial intelligence and areas that machine learning and things that exciting, new, but not that well understood yet. But when opportunity arises, we want to get involved. So how do we go about this? Well, I'll spare you the background of the civil service paperwork pushing around and processes, but fundamentally it's working with you all. Although we can't support anything, this program draws in experts as well from across the VMD, who in themselves work with multiple stakeholder groups and research organizations and interested parties. They're interesting as well, that identify and shape important areas for research. We have a budget, and we have a commissioning process once we identify what the areas of research that we want to progress. We look to work with research organizations, including universities. We work with other government agencies and public sector research organizations, consultancies, whatever. I mean, in terms of the way we go about commissioning something for another day, but we try and be very inclusive in how we go about it. I'll spend a minute or two focusing on the UK's commitment to confront antimicrobial resistance across the sectors. You're all aware that I'm sure that the revised antimicrobial National Action Plan covering 2024 to 2029 was published earlier this year. And this is the second instalment contributing to a long-term 20-year vision that the UK has to tackle AMR. And I think the content of these documents is effectively the basis and the motivator of the AMR research that we support. It contains the UK's commitments on tackling AMR, and generally the research we undertake in this area is looking to support the delivery of aspects of this action plan. One thing which I would highly recommend, if you haven't already seen, is you all in the field of research, or I'll make that assumption, many of you aren't, but doesn't matter. Have a look at the top 10 research priorities that are there. Commitment 7.1 of the action plan. And that looks at addressing and funding research into antimicrobial resistance. And to do this, it has brought together from multiple discussions, numerous stakeholders, the top 10 research priorities for AMR. And these are the ones to focus on, and why wouldn't we, as a country, as a global community, want to work to tackle it? Now, bear in mind the top 10 reflects a snapshot in time, and it shows what policymakers viewed as priorities at a moment in time, the development of this plan. So as an incentive to keep you engaged and stay in touch with the action plan, there is an intention to, as we progress through this period and beyond, to review these priorities, and as necessary, we can update and change them. So in terms of having a quick look at them, so it's got areas, key themes, cross-cutting themes that are looking at as you can see on the screen, that are looking at the economics of AMR. What's the cost of AMR? What's the benefit of tackling AMR? Improved stewardship, better public awareness, globally recognizing that AMR doesn't respect borders, and we're all in this together. And then other key areas that looking at reducing the need to use antibiotics in the first place. And when we do need to use them, we use what's necessary. Or better still, let's find methods and approaches that avoid using antibiotics in the first place without any detrimental impact on animal health, of course. And then with the knowledge we acquire, how do we best deploy it to have maximum impact? I can also, in terms of developing research, these top 10 research priorities also have a more enhanced version in Appendix C. And that starts to include the sorts of questions that, as I say, this collective group of people have come up with that are the sorts of things that we would as the UK be really keen on developing research into. And as I quote from the action plan, as the evidence base for AMR increases, there are more nuanced questions to be answered. It's critical to consider AMR in the context of other challenges, and that includes climate change. Reducing AMR in sustainable ways to do that, not incur adverse unintended consequences, is a priority. As I say, I recommend you take a look, familiarise yourself. I'm going to stop talking now and hand back to Katrina. Enjoy the presentations. Big thank you to all those who have taken time to pull together the work, and I look forward to watching the presentation. So over to you, Katrina. Thank you.